Welcome back to Focus Today, and what a delight to have back with us Walker Wildmon. He's with the American Family Association. I can't say enough for this organization and what they do and the resources that they provide. I think one of the must websites for you to traffic through, if not on a daily basis, certainly on a weekly basis, is afa.net. Support what they do. They're all over the place, and they are really standing for truth and for righteousness. afa.net. Walker, good to see you again, my friend. How you doing?
Hey, Perry, I just want to first off thank you and theDove for having me back on. We really appreciate what you guys do.
Thank you. Well, give us an update on the Target boycott. How's it going?
Yeah, well, it's going great. As you know, we've talked about this before. We're approaching 1.5 million people who have decided to boycott Target. And for your listeners, for your viewers who are kind of new to this issue, let me kind of go back 6 months and explain how we got here. 6 months ago in April, probably 7 months ago, Target decided that they would announce that they're going to begin allowing men into ladies' restrooms and changing facilities. And we saw that as a danger to women and children and wives and daughters. And so we decided to launch a boycott of Target. Well, the majority of Americans agreed with our stance on that's a dangerous policy for Target. And then in return, we have over 1 million people boycotting Target, not shopping in their stores and shopping elsewhere.
And how's it going? What's been the impact of that?
Well, right now you see Target stocks down almost 20 points from where it was before the boycott began. And they've lost over $20 billion in stock value. Their shareholders actually have. The shareholders have taken the punch for this. And Target, behind this, in public, they like to act like this is no big deal. We got this under control. This storm will blow by. But we hear behind the scenes that they're scrambling over this. This is the talk almost every day in the Target headquarters. They don't know what to do to fix this. So it's having a huge impact, and especially on their sales number. That's a tangible way for us to see that Target's losing money over this issue.
You know, it's interesting, their initial response, they dug in harder, didn't they?
Yeah, they dug in harder, and that's usually what the enemy does. They dig their heels in harder. And sometimes we back down. You know, sometimes Christians back down when the enemy digs their heels in harder. But not this time. Really, the people who are boycotting Target and us here at American Family Association, we're going to play hardball too. You know, if they're not going to back down, we're not going to back down either. And they're going to keep losing billions of dollars if they don't straighten their attitude out.
Well, the only thing I can say, it's working. And there are a lot of other choices for you to do that type of shopping, especially in our own area. There's several other stores for you to consider, and I know that it's working. All right, Walker, we had a story today about the Pentagon's new handbook on sex change. It's just staggering. It's just staggering to me what we've done to the military. We've turned it into a chemistry lab, so to speak, for political correctness. What's your take on this?
Yeah, well, I'm sitting here pinching myself because I feel like this isn't reality. You know, we shouldn't have to be talking about what our Pentagon is doing regarding sex change. You know, my first thought is, wait, our Pentagon's central role is to defend the United States of America against foreign enemies. And right now, like you just mentioned, they released this handbook that goes out to all their employees and anyone who wants it on how they can have a sex change done. And right now, as we've heard this mentioned in the presidential election cycle, ISIS is in 32 countries under Obama's watch. We have ISIS attacks on our homeland. You know, you got San Bernardino, you have Orlando, you got several others. And right now, our Pentagon is focused on showing people how to have their sex changed. And that's just disturbing. And set that aside, the suicide rate among those who have sex changed, those who are transgender, the suicide rate is 41%, according to the USA Today. And so if you look at this in a narrow tunnel, the Pentagon is pushing an agenda that results in 41% of the people following this agenda that try to take their life. And that right there is one reason that we shouldn't be doing this.
The other thing that's staggering to me is the amount of high-ranking officers in the military that have been dismissed by the Obama administration for not upholding this agenda. You know.
Yeah. That right there is disturbing too, because that shows that if you don't go along with Obama's leftist, Marxist, elitist agenda, then you're going to get pushed to the wayside. It's not like you can have dissenting opinions in the same room. The left is apparently all for free speech and the sharing of opinions, unless your opinion disagrees with theirs. And that's what the result of this is. And to have high-ranking generals losing their jobs because they disagree with this agenda that's disturbing in itself, because I'm sure these are well-qualified men.
Is AFA tracking what could happen if we get a new president? Let's say the new president is Donald Trump, and he decides to reverse this. Can he reverse this policy?
Well, yes, he can, because the Pentagon is under the executive branch, and really the Pentagon, their actions right here are a result of Obama's agenda. They do what the boss says, so to speak, and if they don't do what the boss says, they usually don't stay there. So yeah, a new president could definitely reverse this policy. And really, if you look at what's happened the past 8 years under Obama, there have been a few legislative actions done. You got Obamacare, and you have a few other things. But the majority of what he's done has been through executive order or been through his cabinet positions. So virtually, a lot of the damage Obama's done could be taken back by a president.
Well, we'll see, I guess. See what happens. Do you have any indication from your research and intelligence what the morale is in the military these days?
Well, every poll I look at says the morale is low because, you know, we send men and women overseas to defend our country, and we have these horrible rules of engagement where they got their hands tied behind their back. You have to get shot at first before you can shoot back. And so you have that, so that lowers morale. Well, then you have a commander-in-chief who travels the world apologizing of how horrible America is, how we have all these sins of the past and we got to make things right. And then you have things like they're focusing on sex change reassignment. So you got all these things that contribute to a low morale in the military. And one thing our military members want, and I have a few friends who are in the military and serve in law enforcement, they want a commander-in-chief who has their back, that's going to send them into war and is going to have their back, and they don't have to fear of coming home and getting in trouble, you know, because they fired the first shot or something like that. But right now the morale is low, and if that continues, it's going to weaken our military.
I want to come back to the boycott of Target just for a moment before it gets away from us. Has there been any incidences reported in Target since they have adopted the policy of gender-neutral bathrooms?
Oh yes. Nearly every month there's another incident of specifically a man entering the female restroom or changing area and either filming or peeking over the stall or something like that. So we have last week we sent out a list of 10 examples that have happened in the last year or so. But the past 6 months, I would say we've had maybe a dozen incidents of this happening, and it's the exact thing that we mentioned. It's men who walk in the ladies' facility, and there'll be little girls in there or whatever, and the managers and the store clerks can't say anything because Target's policy allows that man in there. So it's really frustrating because when the moms go complain to the manager says, well, that's our policy. I can't do anything about it. And that's why we've been trying to get Target to take this policy back.
So what happens under an incident like that, Walker? What happens? I mean, is there any recourse for those who have been offended? Can the store get sued? Does the guy get thrown in jail, or is this just a great big green light?
Yeah, well, it is a big green light, But there are certain laws in certain states where, you know, you can't do peeping and recording. You know, of course, you can't assault someone. But the fact that Target's policy allows a predator to even get to the point where they can peep is frustrating to us, because you would think you set up all necessary protections and precautions to prevent unlawful actions. But right now, Target's allowing sexual predators to get right up to the line, and then they video someone or touch someone or something. And to your question about options, you can, if a lady or a mom or a mom's son or daughter is assaulted in Target as a result of these policies, they can definitely sue, and that would probably be a winning suit in court.
Amazing. All right, let me take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll get into some of the situations going on with the election, what AFA is sensing and feeling. And one of the key areas that's so interesting to me is the millennials, where they are in this election cycle. It seems like they are engaged, but they're not informed. And I'm not sure what all that means. Maybe you can elaborate on that. Again, you can go to afa.net. This is a wonderful resource. Walker and his team, and it's just wonderful. All the resources they have available, afa.net. We'll be right back.
I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at theDove.us.
Welcome back to Focus Today, and delighted to have with us Walker Wildmon. He's with the American Family Association, afa.net, one of the great resources, websites, and all the things they're involved in. You may want to check out the continued boycott against Target for their transgender bathroom policy. And by the way, people say, well, boycotts don't work. Not so. This one is having an incredible impact upon Target's bottom line, and it is being felt at a level that we never thought. In fact, Walker's grandfather is responsible for perhaps one of the most impacting boycotts ever. They got Phil Donahue kicked off the air. So that's how all this started. So you guys go way back with this issue, don't you?
Oh, yeah, way back. My grandfather started boycotts 30 to 40 years ago, and you know, they're not as effective today as they were back then, but they still are very effective.
Walker, I want to come to millennials. A lot said about them, good and bad. You're one of them.
Yeah. No offense taken.
No, but it's an amazing thing. How do you think millennials are looking at this presidential race?
Well, they're probably looking at it like, how can I get my college paid for? But no, seriously, the Democrats have promised to have debt-free college. And so that's probably an incentive for your uninformed millennial voter. But I would say millennials are probably looking at this like, can we not get any better candidates than this? And I think that's how the majority of Americans are looking at this. I was talking to a lady, getting my oil changed the other day, talking to a lady, and I said, look, you can tell me you're voting for Hillary, for Trump. I'm not going to bash you for either one of them. I just want to know what you think about this election. And she said, well, I'm really disappointed that we don't have any better candidates than this. And I said, yeah, you're right. She said, Americans work hard. They raise families. They work hard. They do their best. And this is all we got. There's not two people better qualified than this. And so I think whether it be millennials or older people or middle age, the morale amongst voters is very low, and these two candidates have very unlikable ratings.
Well, there's no question about it that for the first time in American history, everybody's going to hold their nose.
Yeah.
you're going to put a big old clothespin on your nose and then pull the lever for one or the other. I don't know anybody that's happy with these candidates, and you bring out some good points. Can millennials look past the candidate and see the issues?
Yes, well, that's a very good point. And I would say that's what we all need to do. We all need to look past the candidates, especially in this situation, and look to the party platforms, like you said, to the issues. And I'm not, by no means am I advocating not to vote because we have two very flawed candidates. It would take a horrible situation for me to even talk about not voting. My stance is, and this is my personal stance and probably the stance of American Family Association, is we should always vote. Even though we have two flawed candidates, and I think that's the case this November, every Christian should vote. Yeah, maybe they're not the perfect person. Maybe we would rather have someone else. But the reality is there's one candidate in this election, and I won't even mention names, I don't have to. There's one candidate that despises Christians specifically, and this has been on the record, despises people of faith, calls us a basket of deplorables, irredeemable. So that's one candidate. And then you have another candidate who is flawed too, but that candidate has said that they will protect religious liberty, appoint pro-life Supreme Court justices, and do several other things that will free up Christians to be more engaged in politics and to allow churches to do what churches are supposed to do and get all the churches are fearful of losing their tax exempt status. And while there's no precedent of this happening, that's what churches are fearful of. So they don't even want to engage in public dialogue on social issues because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble. And that's one thing that one candidate has spoken about protecting. So the choices are clear, and I think everyone has to vote. Not voting is not an option.
You did a blog that supports Trump's theory that the system is rigged. Now, you're not alone. I was surprised to hear Pat Buchanan say this, Newt Gingrich say this. We've had candidates who've gone into the voting booth, some of these electronic voting machines, to vote for themselves, and their vote came up for their opponent. We in Oregon, we have vote by mail. I mean, the potential of voter fraud has never been higher. But voter fraud and election rigging, a little bit different. What do you mean by your article?
Well, specifically, I covered two aspects. I covered the mainstream media bias, which you can see reflected in the first two presidential debates, along with the first and only vice presidential debate. In these debates, you saw moderators interrupt the Republican nominee 2, 3, 4 times more than they interrupted the Democratic nominee. And that's not because the Republican nominee was somehow talking more or talking out of turn. It's because they were specifically going after the Republican nominee. And so you have that, you have the moderators and the whole mainstream media who has admitted we're out to bring down Trump. It's one thing if the media is being biased and we call their hand on it and they say, yeah, you're right, we need to play fair, yada, yada. But we're calling their hand on it and they're saying, yeah, what about it? We're not fair. So you have that. That's one aspect of a rigged system. And then you have, like you mentioned, voter fraud. And you have this happening thousands of times each election cycle. And you have dead people voting. And I heard Rudy Giuliani say the other day, dead people vote Democratic. And we wonder why that is. You never see a dead person vote Republican. It's because the Democrats are pulling all these shenanigans. And so whether it be mainstream media bias or the election system and how these federal judges are pulling back voter ID laws. I have to have a voter ID when I buy a car. When you buy some types of medicine, you have to have an ID. You have to have a photo ID to drive, but somehow we don't have to have a photo ID to vote. It's totally whack, but specifically the media bias and the election fraud. Those are two main issues that I talked about in the article.
You know, Donald Trump's talking about this loud and a lot over the last 2 days. The last 2 days, he's really hit it pretty hard. If you listen to the response, and granted, he's talking to rallies that are there to support him, but the response has been overwhelmingly loud in agreement. Does that tell you anything?
Yeah, that's because the American people know that the political system is rigged, and it's rigged against the Republicans, against conservatives, and against Christians. And now you have emails coming out from these WikiLeaks of the Clinton campaign working directly with hosts on CNN, MSNBC, NBC, have the campaign emailing the host directly, getting the talking points ready and providing a script to be asked. So it's not like when Trump goes on media outlets, sometimes he doesn't know what he's going to be asked. And that's why sometimes he fumbles around and doesn't get the answer out correctly. But Hillary goes on these media shows and she knows exactly what's going to be asked. She's reading off a teleprompter. She's like a robot. And so it's the American people, and specifically Trump supporters at these rallies, they know what Trump's talking about.
Where do you, now I realize you're a conservative millennial, thank God. Where does your generation get their news? I mean, who do they trust for their news?
Well, 2 words: social media. A lot of people my age, and even myself at times, I find myself on Twitter getting the news. Now I don't find, facts and in-depth information from social media, but I'll find headlines, things like that. But I mean, you look at the social media used among millennials. They use Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all these things, and the things that are mentioned on social media aren't always accurate, and they don't show the whole picture. When your older generation probably reads the newspaper or reads online articles and reads more in depth and gets the whole picture. My generation is more of a subject line generation. You scroll down and get the subject line, keep going. So you have to be careful where you get your information, and that's one thing that I will say the millennials are not doing good at, is getting facts and information and taking that in.
A lot of criticisms about millennials, but it appears they may be right of center. You think that's true?
Yeah. Well, I think if you explain the issues to millennials, and talk about the facts, the pros and cons to liberal policies, then I think, the majority of millennials will come out on the right side of the political aisle. But when you have misinformation and confusion and people talking about debt-free college, the whole leftist, Marxist, elitist agenda, it sounds very good. Who doesn't want debt-free college? I'll take debt-free college. Who wants free health care? I'll take free health care. But you start delving into those issues. Well, who's going to pay for it? Well, the American taxpayer is going to pay for it. And the millennial says, so you're telling me if I get a job, I want to be paying for your college? No, that doesn't sound cool. So you really have to, the millennials have to start, like I said, understanding the issues. And I think if we get the correct information out there, like your station does and other networks, then I do believe, yes, the millennial generation will come out on the right side of the spectrum.
I'm also encouraged by the millennials. They seem to be more pro-life than pro-choice. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Nearly every poll that you look at, the millennial generation favors pro-life more than they do pro-abortion or pro-death. And I think the one thing we have done good at, we as the Christians and conservatives, is we've done a good job of conveying pro-life values to the younger generation. And really, I think this topic hits home with people of all ages, because they understand if, what if I were aborted? And that's one thing I wish the liberals and people like Obama and Clinton, I wish they would ask themselves. So I'm pro-abortion, or pro-choice, they like to fancy it, but it's really pro-death. I'm for killing babies. Well, what if I was that baby? I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be able to run for president. And I think if they really grasp that would really change their perspective. But we are winning on the pro-life issue. I know here in Mississippi, we only have one abortion clinic, and it gets very low traffic. We've narrowed it down to one abortion clinic in the entire state. And that it's like that in several other states. So the pro-life issue, it's a winnable war.
All right, there's a lot to consider in this election cycle, Walker, and we could go through the litany of things, both on the left side and the right side. Of all the things that's out there, what do you think is the most important issue to consider when pulling the lever for a president? Well,
unfortunately, it shouldn't be this way, but unfortunately, right now in this day and age, I would say the Supreme Court. Because you have, in decades ago, the Supreme Court didn't wield the power that it wields now. It made big decisions. You got Roe v. Wade and several other ones that you can mention, but the courts didn't have as much power. Well, now the court system is running the country. I mean, we don't even pass legislation anymore. We just let the court tell us what to do, which is unfortunate, but that's how it is right now.
We also, you got to go. I'm sorry, Walker, don't want to step on you. I really apologize for that. The court will live long beyond a Trump or a Hillary.
Correct, yes. So the Supreme Court's the main issue.
Thank you, my friend. Blessings to you and your entire team there. And I want to say to our viewers and listeners, go to afa.net. It is an incredible website, unbelievable resource. You can sign petitions, you can get information, you do all kinds of stuff. afa.net. Walker, to you, your dad, the whole team, thank you guys.
Thank you, Perry.
All right, God bless. We'll see you next time on Focus Today.